The Cleveland Guardians headed out west on a brutal 9-game road trip. Started off ugly, but it ended good with the Guardians showing some old resiliency and some new tricks that we've been begging for.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into a Victory Monday episode of Locked On Guardians. We talk about the Cleveland Guardians for a half hour. It is our favorite half hour of the day. We hope it's yours as well. It's a nice distraction from the real world. Thankfully, the Cleveland Guardians were able to do some good things this weekend, so we have lots of good things to talk about on today's show, but we're happy to share with you for a half hour each day. We do it every day throughout the week here on Locked On Guardians, your Cleveland Guardians every day. I'm Justin Lada. I have been writing about the Cleveland Guardians minor league system, providing analysis and scouting reports on their prospects since 2007, and I've been here, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On Guardians, since October of 2022, when the Cleveland Guardians made a playoff run with a very skeleton offense and even, quite frankly, less starting pitching than what they have right now. So we're going to get into that on today's show. But before we do, let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, if you're a new customer, you can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So go ahead and lay that down. On today's show, we will get into what we learned from the College World Series. I'll talk about some draft stuff at the end of today's show, some players from there, some strategy that I'm taking away from the World Series in college. We'll talk about some of the adjustments of Slade Cecconi this weekend, and honestly, all of the Guardians pitchers. We'll talk about how the Guardians starting pitching is their identity once again, and it has to be their identity. And we'll start off with kind of rehashing the road trip. Obviously, this road trip started on a pretty sour note, right? It was not a good trip to Seattle. Bibee got squeezed a little bit. Gavin Williams got squeezed a little bit. They did not play well in the final game of that Seattle series. And Seattle is a really good team. They've got good starting pitching. They might have the AL MVP. They've got a couple of nice pieces. J.P. Crawford kicked their butt. And this team was ready to fall back under 500. They have not been under 500 since April 9th. And they went into San Francisco, and they won the first two games of the series. And they lost to Logan Webb, obviously, on Thursday, which we're not shocked by because Logan Webb is really good. And this offense, it's not good. It's not a good offense, we'll be honest. But they did enough to win that series. They did enough to win the series in Sacramento this weekend as well. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters, because I don't know if we can sit here and say the offense is going to improve or if it's going to be better or what caliber it's going to be. But if you're winning games, it at least gives you an opportunity to figure things out. And that's what the starting pitching is doing for this team right now. And the resilience is important too. Again, I said the Guardians have not been under 500 since April 9th. They are now 3-0 in games where they could have fallen under 500. So every time they get to that 500 mark, they continue to fight back. And that's important too, that this team continues to stay resilient and not fall into. They've had 1 5-game losing streak this year. Luckily, the starting pitching is continuing to get better this season. And that's what's going to help you stay out of extended losing streaks, especially when your offense is streaky at best. And when your bullpen is good, not great, like it was a year ago. And we knew that was going to happen. We knew that the starting pitching was going to have to step up this year because we knew it was going to be impossible for the bullpen to be as good as it was a year ago. But they really did a good job on this road trip, and that's going to buy them some time. And you look at the Twins, look at the Royals. The Twins are kind of falling apart right now. You know, they don't have Pablo Lopez for an extended amount of time. Race Lewis keeps getting hurt. The Royals are kind of a mess right now. They're trying to figure things out. I know Seth Lugo came back for them and pitched pretty well, but you know, they're kind of a mess right now. And the Tigers are going through a little bit too. They're still obviously the best team in the division and at least the second best team in the American League, if not maybe the best on the balance of things. They don't have the offense that the Yankees do, but their pitching's probably better. So this is still going to be a tough division. But right now, the Guardians, we're almost halfway through the season, and the Guardians right now are tied with the Mariners for a playoff spot. And right now, the Mariners, of course, hold that tiebreaker until the Seattle comes to Cleveland and they can settle the difference there. Of course, they got Toronto coming in first, who's also in hold of a wild card spot. So this week coming up is going to mean a lot of things for this Guardians team, but continue to be impressed by the fact that when things get tough, they continue to battle back. And again, I know you're going to look at the box scores and going to look at the stats and say, well, it's not pretty. It's not. It's definitely not pretty. I'm not sitting here saying it has to inspire confidence for you. It doesn't really inspire confidence for me in terms of offense either. But I know when this team, you have Jose Ramirez, you have Steven Kwan. We saw Kyle Manzaro have a good road trip, I think, in San Francisco. And obviously, he's playing well enough to where everybody wants him in the lineup, even against lefties. He had 2 hits on Sunday against the lefties. So he did a really good job on Sunday. And that was the 2 good things. One of the other good things the Guardians did on this road trip, too, is in order to win this series on Sunday, they had to beat a lefty. They beat JP Sears, who's been pretty good this year. And Saturday, they beat Mitch Spence, who's had a good season to date so far. And they got all their offense in 1 inning on Saturday, obviously. But you know what? You'll take that. It doesn't matter when the runs come, as long as you get them. It doesn't matter how you get them. We said coming into the year, this team was going to have to win a lot of 3-2, 4-3 games. And 4 runs has been that magic number for them. And it's a lot easier to win a game with 4 runs when your starting pitching has been as good as it's been this year. And I don't know. I think starting off this road trip is 0-3, and everybody down in the dumps looking at like, okay, they scored 11 runs against Cincinnati before they headed out west. They salvaged the end of that series, didn't get swept. And everybody was hoping that was them coming around, right? They beat Andrew Abbott, who's been really good this year. We saw some life from Lane Thomas. Heading out west, we thought that was going to be the cure to things, right? That was going to be not a cure, but at least a step in the right direction. And it wasn't. They went to Seattle and they didn't play good. They played bad baseball. Bad things happened. They played bad baseball, but they responded. They went to San Francisco, who again is a good team, very hard to beat at home because it's a hard ballpark to hit in. And when you put an offense like this in ballparks that are hard to score runs in, it's not a great combination, but they went out and they did just enough to win those games. The Guardians, are kind of like a lot of us these days, right? They're surviving. I don't know if they're thriving, but they're surviving. But when you get halfway through the season and you've been through the things they've been through this year, and you have the roster they have, I guess surviving is okay. Like I know everybody wants to win the division again. I want to see them win the division again too. And it hasn't been the most inspiring brand of baseball this season, not like it was a year ago. But to get all you got to do is get in the playoffs. And I'm not saying they're going to make this deep run or anything in the playoffs, but right now, considering the state of things, you want them to just literally hang around and give this front office a reason to go out and add something. Give this front office a reason to call up prospects. I know that's such a touchy subject right now, but they're not going to call up prospects in the next couple of weeks without a reason to, and not just for the player's development, but they're going to do it for the team's future, not the player's future, or the future of both the player and the team. And that's going to be delayed probably if they were to look worse. The better they look, the more they hang around, the more reason you're going to see the possibility for reinforcement, whether it's internal or external. So hanging around right now is a good outcome. It's not the most desired outcome, but it's a good outcome. It's better than not hanging around. I think this, it's been a lot like 2023 this year in a lot of ways. The 2 free agent signings that were splashy did not work out for them. And it was a very lackluster offense overall. Guys didn't repeat what they did in 2022. And this team is not totally dissimilar to that, but you were still relying on a lot of, Miles Strawn, Andres Jimenez, and those guys just didn't come back to where they were the year before. And you were still testing the waters with Oscar Gonzalez from a year ago. So this team, I think, has a little bit of 2023 to it, where it's just very bland. And, again, you're hoping for 2 or 3 runs or 4 runs to win a game here. But, the bullpen right now, I think, is still better than 2023. And the rotation is certainly better than it was in 2023. We're going to talk about why the rotation, I just kind of talked about it really, but we're going to talk more about why the rotation has to be the identity for this team going forward. We will talk about Slade Cecconi's adjustments. We'll talk about all the pitchers' adjustments in this athletic series, what they did, and why it's a good thing going forward for this team, regardless of their offense. Coming up next here on today's Locked On Guardians. Stick around. Oh, those late night games. I know it's so easy to fall into the trap of grabbing whatever snack is closest to you. You want to make sure that you have a snack you're able to grab that is both delicious and nutritious. You can crack into a great source of protein with wonderful pistachios. They are one of the highest protein nuts. It's got 1 ounce. Each 1 ounce serving does have 6 grams of protein, and it's going to give you over 10% of your daily value of protein. They got fiber that's better for you, unsaturated fats to keep you feeling fuller longer. So it's really, like I said, really easy, especially for me to grab into one of those bad snacks for those late night games that have been happening over the last week or so. And when you're on the go, it's also very difficult to grab a snack. If you grab the no shells variety for wonderful pistachios, you can eat in your car, at your desk, on the go, wherever, and not make a mess because you have the no shells variety. It makes snacking easy, and it makes it more satisfying and less guilt. We all need that in our snacks these days. So get cracking, get snacking with the snack that's going to pack a protein punch for you. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Thank you guys for all making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. Appreciate all of our everydayers. Appreciate our insiders for being here and sticking with us through the thin times, of course. But the things were good this weekend, so we're appreciating all you hear. If you like what you're hearing, make sure you are automatically downloading on all of your audio platforms so you never miss an episode, including things like the MLB Squad Show. And on YouTube, you can do the same thing by hitting the bell. You'll automatically get all of our episodes, push notification to you, as well as our reaction videos to games, news, the squad show, anything else that pops up along the way. So make sure you're doing all those things to help the show out. And we hope we're helping you enjoy Guardians baseball a little bit more, win or lose, giving you, I think, what's, fair and balanced analysis. I think we're, trying to look at it from an equal perspective, as it were. All right, let's get back into the starting pitching. And I kind of talked a lot about it in the first segment about why it's the identity right now, and it has to be the identity. And it has to be the identity for the Guardians because this offense is very blasé right now. Jose Ramirez, I put out a tweet over the weekend that Jose Ramirez, his OPS is like 800 something, high 800s when the Guardians lose, and it's over 1,000 when the Guardians win. Not really a shock, but when the Guardians win, Stephen Kwan's OPS is over 900. When they lose, his OPS is below 700. So Stephen Kwan, as I've mentioned before on the show, and I mentioned on Twitter, is really kind of the key to this offense. You have to have a couple guys going at once. Jose is going to get his win or lose for the most part. He's going to have games where he's not great. He wasn't, fantastic in Sacramento, although he did make an adjustment there. And they all made an adjustment in Sacramento. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But the offense right now, it's really a lot on Kwan. It's a lot on Jose. And then you're looking for guys to fill in, right? You're looking for David Fry to get hot somehow. And there's no guarantee that David Fry is going to do what he did a year ago. Now, in the minors, David Fry was a lefty masher. That is one of the reasons Cleveland targeted him in that J.C. Mejia trade, which looked great for them because I don't think J.C. Mejia is even pitching right now for the Brewers. If he is, he's hurt or in the minors. And David Fry was a key piece of this team a year ago, and that's part of why the offense isn't as good as it was a year ago. Because for the first 2 months last year, David Fry was otherworldly as a hitter, right? You had Stephen Kwan, who was pushing 400. You had Tyler Freeman, who filled in really well for him last year. Josh Naylor got hot and cold last year. You had all those guys that were hanging around, and you had John Kenson Noel come up, and he was hot when he came up as well. This year, you don't really have that luxury of all those guys that are doing well. We don't know if David Fry is going to bounce back to that form. We hope he does. The Guardians do need him, so they're going to have to, unfortunately, stick around with him and have to see if he can get back to it because he's a part of the offense they absolutely need. And they're going to have to keep playing Kyle Manzardo because he has to be a future part of this team. And that means going through growing pains at times. Ano Martinez, same thing. He looks like he can be an exciting piece to this team's future. But guess what? He's not a guy who's, a cemented, proven guy. You just want him to play because he's one of your best options right now. Same with Daniel Schneemann. Probably asking Daniel Schneemann to do a little too much offensively. But he's one of the best guys you've got right now, so you've got to play him. And, that kind of leaves, obviously, the obvious questions up to guys like Lane Thomas and Nolan Jones and Bo Naylor. Carlos Santana is what he is. He's done some good things. He's done some not so great things. The defense he had over the weekend was fantastic, by the way, though. He had that line drive that he caught, he was up in the air quite a bit for anybody, let alone a 39-year-old. That was impressive. You didn't have that first base defense a year ago, and I don't know how valuable that is compared to the offense, but you certainly didn't have it a year ago. And you need that defense right now because the starting pitching has to be the identity because better or worse, Lane Thomas is here. Now, you can say they should limit Lane Thomas to hitting left-handers only, but they didn't trade for him to be a guy who's a lefty-only hitter. If you had that luxury, that'd be great if you had that luxury. But guess what? You really don't, right? You don't have that luxury. Nolan Jones is okay. Daniel Schneemann's okay. You don't have a guy that is crushing it against righties where you can say, okay, Lane Thomas you're only going to play against lefties and some select righties. Like, no. And they've dialed that back a little bit recently. Like you saw Lane Thomas played on Sunday. He didn't play Saturday in the game against Mitch Spence. They did use Schneemann. They did bench Arias. They went to Schneemann and Martinez and Jones. So they are still trying to mix and match him in a little bit. And I don't know if they're going to get him going. I really don't. I thought I got this one wrong. I thought that Lane Thomas was going to have this great year because he was going to be fully healthy and he was going into a contract year. It was going to be big for him. Well, he's had the plantar fasciitis. He's had the wrist issue. So he hasn't played all that great. He really has not been good as a guard in the regular season. The one thing you can really say that's been good about Lane Thomas is his grand slam against Tarek Skubal. That's been it. But he's here for the better or worse. I don't see the Guardians DFAing him, at least not anytime soon. And not like anybody's going to trade for him either. You keep saying, trade Lane Thomas and play somebody else. I don't think that's going to happen. So you need to live with some of these younger guys like a Martinez, like a Manzardo, and you got to live with Fry getting it back together. And you're going to live with Bo Naylor because you don't have another option. And he can deliver you some big hits, but he's out there for his defense at this point, which is wild to say. And that's why the starting pitching has to be the identity of his team. We've been talking all year. We thought the identity of this team was going to be something like a patient team, right? We thought they're going to draw walks. We thought that Lane Thomas, who almost can be passive as a hitter, can draw walks in the 2 spot. Carlos Santana draws a lot of walks. We thought Manzardo was, right? Nolan Jones is a very passive hitter, so we thought he could draw walks, and he's done a good job with that. It hasn't been consistent enough with the Guardians to fall back on that as their identity, as the team they really are. And it's not doing enough for them because their hits have to come in bunches like they did over the weekend. I mean, Angel Martinez homered in Sacramento for the only homer this weekend for them, even though they won the series in a ballpark that really inflates offensive numbers. Now, the pitching staff did a good job of holding the Athletics at bay, thankfully, which again has to be the hallmark of this team. It's what was the best part of this team under the Terry Francona years was the pitching staff, and that's why we got to the pitching factory. And they have to do it again. You have to have Tanner Bibee going out there and doing what he did Friday. Now, he ended up losing that game, but he had a double-digit strikeout game. Jose made the 2 errors that cost him a little bit, but he was efficient. He had the gas in the tank to go out there in the 8th inning and keep your bullpen from having to come in. And that set him up for Saturday and Sunday, which was really good. He is becoming a leader of the staff. He told Stephen Vogt to stay back in the dugout, not take him out. He finished that 8th inning. He got a quote-unquote complete game, only lost. But it was one of the best performances of his career. It's the longest he's ever gone. It's another double-digit strikeout performance. And again, they lost the game, but it set them up for the rest of the weekend. And it really shows the maturation that Tanner Bibee has gone through and the respect he and Stephen Vogt have for each other on this team. And that really set the tone for the weekend because if you saw the adjustments that Tanner Bibee made in that game, you saw a lot of backdoor sinkers. You saw a lot of sinkers on the inside part of the plate to lefties, and that kept them off the 4 seam, and that set everything else up for them to sneak by them because the Athletics are a very aggressive hitting team. They swing at the first pitch a lot. They don't take walks. At least not that I'm 100% sure. I'm gonna double check on that, but I don't believe this is a team that walks a ton. No, the Athletics are they're 15th in baseball at home, taking walks at 9%. So they take walks in an average rate for the most part, but the Guardians believed the Athletics would be aggressive against them. They have been. Think of how many times in the show over the first course of the season we've talked about how Bibee and Williams and Ortiz and other guys are giving up first pitch home runs, right? They've been ambushed on the first pitch of the game, those 4-seam fastballs. Well, guess what? Now they're throwing sliders and curveballs, and they have the sinker. So Bibee used the sinker really effectively in his start. And then we saw Luis Ortiz come out Saturday and do the same thing. The sinker was one of his best pitches, and it allowed them to stay off the fastball. And he's got this great slider, and then his changeup is developing into something great, something he didn't even throw a year ago. And now it's been one of his more devastating pitches because it looks a ton like his sinker. And then you've got a young guy like Slade Cecconi, who was, by far not a finished product. Almost none of these guys are finished products in the rotation, honestly, if you look at it. But Cecconi was able to also play off of those adjustments, right? He threw a lot of sinkers in this game, and he had to make an adjustment to his sinker because he didn't like what it looked like his last start. And he was fantastic using it to get first pitch outs against the Athletics on Sunday, which allowed him to get into the 7th inning under 80 pitches. So we'll talk more about Slade Cecconi's adjustments, the pitching staff's adjustments, and we'll also get into what we learned from the College World Series and thinking more through the Guardians draft strategy as it relates to that. That is all coming up next here on the rest of Monday's Locked On Guardians. Summer is in full swing. That means summer sports are in full swing, like baseball. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high stakes soccer action, you know that FanDuel is the best way for you to make every game more exciting. I follow all the action all game long, whether it's baseball, even if it's not the Guardians. I follow a lot of stuff on FanDuel and in baseball overall. And it makes it really more thrilling to kind of look at all of the daily parlays, things that are going on. Like Wednesday coming up is Paul Skeen to Jacob Marzarowski. I'm definitely going to be looking into that one very heavily, taking the under on runs, taking the over on strikeouts. And with the Guardians right now, their pitching staff, I'm also going to go for the under on a lot of their games too, because I believe the starting pitching staff is starting to find a solid footing. Easy to use on FanDuel, fast payouts that make regular season games feel like must-watch events, and it makes you feel like you're part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers, you can bet just $5 and get $100 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, real quickly, let's get into some of the pitching staff's adjustments over the weekend and why this rotation is looking so good, but it's not a finished product. And we'll get into the College World Series a little bit too, because I'm really bummed that's over. But this rotation by far, I said it's got to be the backbone of the team because of the offense. And this is what has made the Guardians successful for the last decade, right? Has been their starting pitching. Because offense isn't the way it was in the 90s. I know everybody wants, the Bells and the Tomies and the Ramirez's. And there are good offenses out there. Obviously, you've got, teams like the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Cubs who are hitting really well this year. Remember now, too, we've seen this a lot in stories, too. The baseball is different this year. There's less drag on the ball, or there's more drag on the ball, so there's less offense. Offense is down this year across the board because Major League Baseball, for whatever reason, can't seem to have a consistent baseball grip. So we don't ever know what it's going to be and if it's going to inflate offense, if it's going to depress offense. Starting pitching never slumps. I mean, it does if it's not good, but starting pitching keeps you in a lot of games no matter what the baseball looks like, especially if the ball is deadened or has different seams, all that kind of stuff. So starting pitching always keeps you in games. And starting pitching is the most expensive thing. Again, have we mentioned Alex Cobb and how much money he got from the Tigers over the offseason, even though he hasn't pitched in a single game this year? Starting pitching is really expensive. They were able to keep Tanner Bibee at a bargain. They got Shane Bieber back because he got hurt, but he also wanted to be here because he believes in this team's recovery process and he believes in their pitching development. You traded for Luis Ortiz, who is blossoming. Slade Cecconi is blossoming. Gavin Williams is still, undeveloped overall, but has shown really good steps forward this time this year. But even though he's been, frustrating at times, they all have been frustrating at times. But this is still a really young staff. And I don't think anybody on the staff has more than 3 years in the majors. Tanner Bibee goes back to 2023. Gavin Williams as well. Logan Allen. Luis Ortiz. Slade Cecconi is only in his second year. This is still a young staff. And I know what you're going to say. Well, everybody's young because this team doesn't really keep anybody. You're right. It's always going to be a young team. That's where we're at. And starting pitching is also hard to develop. It's also hard to acquire. But it's got to be the backbone of this team because it's going to be a lot harder for them to acquire externally. And nobody likes platoons. I know everybody wants to stop with the platoons, but if you find the right situation to put guys in, again, a better offense, you can put Lane Thomas in against lefties only, and hopefully he thrives. Same with David Fry. We saw this work a year ago for the most part. And that's how it can work and how it has to work for the Guardians. And they got some of the guys they can promote at some point. And all their top prospects right now are hitters. We hope they're developing. We can talk more about that as the week goes on, of course, because I know we're getting close to the halfway point. We should see some promotion soon. We'll get into more of that tomorrow. I know everyone wants to talk, Chase Lauder, all those things. So we'll get into more of that tomorrow. But the pitching has to be the backbone of this team because it's too expensive to acquire, and it's what keeps you in games when offense isn't good. And you can't control what the ball looks like from year to year with Major League Baseball. So let's talk about the adjustments a little more. We talked the sinker. Slade Cecconi, again, not a finished product by any means, but his changeup was good a year ago. That was the only pitch he had a good year ago. His slider this year has taken off. His four-seam fastball is getting more whiffs this year. If you go back to last season, his four-seam fastball only got, his slider last year only got 19% whiff rate. This year it's up to 42%. His curveball is up over 50% this year. He threw a ton of those in the Athletics game. They talked about adjusting the grip on his sinker to make it better. The sinker's still getting crushed this year for him, but it's a brand new pitch, and he played off of what Bibee and Ortiz did on Friday and Saturday, and making sure that the Athletics hitters didn't ambush them. The Athletics have almost a top 10 offense at home, and they've got good hitters like Lawrence Butler and Brent Rooker and Jacob Wilson, who's one of the best rookies in baseball with that aggressive approach. And, oh, by the way, Nick Kurtz, who's one of my favorite hitters in baseball, crushes right-handers, crushes them at home, hit a home run on Friday night, but he's not good against lefties. He's not hitting on the road, but they're all good at home, and the Guardians shut them down at home for the most part, especially Saturday and Sunday. They made adjustments. We've been talking all year about the need to make adjustments, and this pitching staff, again, it's young, and it's not fully developed, especially guys like Ortiz and Cecconi. You've got your third-year guys like Bibee and Williams and Allen. Allen's been a serviceable fifth starter. Williams has been frustrating. Bibee, we know what you're going to get, even though it has been a little bit adjustments for him this year too. These guys all have that potential. You can really see this rotation coming together, and who knows? We didn't think they were going to be able to survive that Ben Lively. Ben Lively was their second best pitcher a year ago. He's been out for over a month now, and you haven't even noticed because Slade Cecconi's had like one bad start. He didn't throw a ton of strikes in his last start. Didn't feel like he did a great job, but he got through it and he pitched pretty well. And that was a bad start. Things are going pretty well for Slade Cecconi. And these guys, especially a guy like him and Ortiz, are still working with these things. They've got to throw strikes, especially Ortiz. But you see how special the stuff is. And you see and you hear they're making real adjustments. So they made the adjustment with the sinkers, and they're making adjustments during season on the fly, which is difficult, especially for young pitchers. And it's working. It's going to be a work in progress, but you're seeing some of the good results for it. You just got to hope the offense comes along. I know everyone's going to say, well, if they promote some of their prospects, maybe it would. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. Kristen Campbell for the Red Sox is back in AAA. That's not to say no prospects are ever going to work out or you shouldn't promote them because if they fail, it's just a matter of volume and fit right now. We'll get into more of that tomorrow. I've got a special guest coming on tomorrow's show, so we'll get into more of the offense, things at the midway point, and prospect promotions tomorrow we'll talk about. We'll finish up today's show by talking about the College World Series. So obviously LSU won both games Saturday and Sunday, I should say. Disappointed because I wanted to see a game 3. I was hoping to extend the season a little bit longer, but really learned a lot of fun things from this College World Series run, and especially this weekend from Coastal Carolina and LSU. Now, first thing we learned is that umpires have fragile egos. And I don't know what was said by the head coach of Coastal Carolina, but he did violate a rule. You can't be told you're warned and come out and argue and stay out there. So there was that. That's not great. And then they also wanted to suspend a coach for 2 games because he quote unquote bumped an umpire, even though that umpire fell on his own by tripping over his other fellow umpire. That's sad. That's very sad. But that's another story. What we learned this weekend is that Kate Anderson's really, really good. But one thing Jeff and I were texting about, and by the way, Jeff is out with family on vacation, so that's why this is a solo show. I should have mentioned that 28 minutes ago. But Anthony Eliason on Sunday was fantastic once again for LSU. I don't think, and Jeff's right, he said this, there's not a $7 million gap between Anthony Eliason and Kate Anderson. Kate Anderson is clearly maybe the best pitcher in college baseball this year, which I can't believe I'm going to say because I thought Jamie Arnold was so good. But Kate Anderson is, and Eliason is good. I don't think there's a $7 million gap. Jeff's right. I don't know if you can take Eliason at 27, but he's a really good pitcher. The other thing we unfortunately learned, I think, is I got to say I'm out on Caden Bodine at 27. It's 2 games, but he didn't look good against either Kate Anderson or Anthony Eliason, which, to be fair, a lot of hitters didn't look good against them this year. But when you're evaluating these kind of things, you want them to do good against top competition. I know someone's going to go back and say, well, Travis Bazzana couldn't hit Hagen Smith a year ago. You're right, he didn't. Different story, different players. Bazzana had a lot of elite metrics that backed him up, whereas Bodine, a lot of his value is defense and contact. And I just think Bodine's going to have too aggressive an approach, and he's not going to have enough thump behind the bat to be more than average. Maybe the defense will be really good and it won't matter. I don't know, but I think I'm out on Bodine at 27. For Cleveland, I think I'm leaning with Jeff towards Devin Taylor if he gets there. I don't think Devin Taylor from Indiana should get to 27, but if he does, I'd be all in there. Now, you might have to pay full slot for Devin Taylor at 27, so we'll see how that goes. If you go with a guy like Bodine at 27, I would hope you're doing it because the Guardians aren't picking again until 64, 66, and 70, where you can do a lot of damage. If you spend under on Bodine, if that allows you to push a guy like maybe, I don't know, a Nick Becker, and Aaron Watson down, Angel Cervantes, another guy I like too. Briggs McKenzie is interesting. Brady Ebel, we've talked about a little bit. Are you pushing those guys down to the 60s? I don't really know. Maybe. I like those guys, but I don't know if you're going to be able to use Bodine to push those guys down to the 60s. So you got to be really careful where you go. I'm not sure about the offensive tools for Bodine overall. And I don't know if Devin Taylor is going to follow them. So I'll be very curious to see. I did see one mock where Tyler Bremner was 26, and if he got to 27, you turn that pick in and you walk away and you say thank you. But I don't think he gets there. So we'll see where things go. But I think I'm out on Bodine at 27 overall right now. Again, the Guardians are going to play the whole draft, not just one pick as they always do. Maybe they use that pick to buy down one of those kids I talked about, the high school kids. We'll talk more about them in the future. That would be the only way I think I could live with it. But we'll see what they do. There's still a little bit of time. We'll have Jeff on later in the week to talk draft as things heat up a little bit more. And if you got any draft questions, of course, you can always hit us with those as well as any questions. We'll always address any topic on the show. All right. On Tuesday's episode, Chico is going to join us again. We're going to talk about where the Guardians are at the midseason point. We're going to get to the midseason point this week. 81 games is already here. Can't believe it. But we'll get into the midseason review with Chico. We'll talk prospects. We'll talk a little bit about when is the right time to call up DeLauder, when they should do it, if they should pull the trigger, and what to expect. So all that is coming up tomorrow on Locked On Guardians. We hope you're here with us. Thank you for being here today. And enjoy the off day before Toronto comes to town. And in the meantime, make sure you review, rate, download daily, all that good stuff. And go, Guardians, go.